Hey everybody, this is Rich and you're with Beekeeping with Rich. Funny thing happened on the way to the bee removal last week. I hadn't had to use my bee vac for my own purposes for several years. My hives, I haven't needed replacement. I have used it on friends' behalf. Hey, Rich, can I borrow you and your vacuum? Yeah, sure, no problem. And I've helped other people. But because I was helping other people who were 10 frame beekeepers, I hadn't really thought about the fact that I'm no longer a 10 frame beekeeper. Everything I have is 8 frame. I sold off all my 10 frame equipment a long time ago, except for my 10 frame bee vac, because it's like, what difference does that make whether it's 10 frame or 8 frame? It works just fine, and it doesn't kill bees. So we took the VBAC back out and we did a removal, and we sucked up lots and lots and lots of bees, and we brought them back here, and I set everything up in the backyard to transfer them into a hive body, and picked up the hive body here, went to set it on the other hive body, and suddenly realized that I was trying to put a 10 frame box on top of an 8 frame box. I found that out when about 1,500 to 2,000 bees plopped on the table next to it rather than in the box. And I went, oh, I should probably make a new bee vac based on an 8 frame box. And so that's what I did this week. A couple hours a day spent on it. These aren't hard to make, and I want to show you some of the improvements that I've made. Now, the original box, which was made after many hours of online research, it was a variation of the old Bushkill design. And Bushkill bee vacs have been bought by Better Bee, and they've made a number of excellent design changes to them. And you can buy them from them for about $300. Or you can make one yourself for about $50, if that. This one actually didn't cost me anything. The most expensive part of a bee vac is the hose, and it's also one of the hardest decisions you'll make is what size hose to get. And of course, the new ones now use an integrated bucket head on top as an integrated unit instead of a independent vacuum, although you can also get an insert for them to do the independent. Well, when I decided I should make a new one, I went online and I started looking again to see what improvements I might make. And actually, I didn't spend the type of hours that I did last time researching all this, but after a couple hours I said, you know what, I'm just going to make my same bee vac. I'm just going to make a few improvements or modifications to it that I've seen would work well, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. So this is my old 10 frame bee vac. I have somebody in mind to gift this to, and it starts with your removable top piece, which, just as my new one does, has 2 different size holes on top, because while this is the size hole I use for my intake, there might be times when I needed to use a larger one. Say, hey, my vacuum's broken, let's use your vacuum, but you may have a different size. But probably one of these 2 sizes fit anything you have, unless you have a big 4-inch intake thing. The next part of it, oh, I'm sorry, this also is the regulator. You notice the regulator has a screen underneath it. Not that bees can actually usually get up in there, but just err on the side of caution. Most of the time it is a solid flap of plastic or wood or whatever. I decided to try a thick piece of foam, and you know what? It's gotten beat up a little bit over the years, but it's always worked perfectly. The piece of foam absorbs it. You adjust the pressure on your bee vac by just moving this out of the way of that hole. However, when you're going down the road, this thing, if it's the wrong way, it'll start doing this number and everything else. So I did make a modification on that. The next step, and you'll notice I use these clamps, and my new one at the moment is just being done with bungees. The next piece on one of these bee vacs is the upper chamber. And as was demonstrated to me, I went to the effort to make the piece of screen all the way across and inset somewhat up. And of course, you see all the rubber that seals the regular hive body to this top. These are made basically by taking a deep hive body for your center chamber, and then you take another old deep hive body and you cut it in half. And half of that is your bottom and half of that is your top. There is nothing out of the ordinary about the deep hive body here. The reason for using the deep hive body is you can put some frames on either side for the bees to crawl up into and have a place to hang out. And if you've got it, you can use frames with comb. But other than getting framed, there's really not much about the hive body other than the fact that it's got straps on it. The bottom, oh my, I didn't look. The bottom is missing a piece, a very important piece. You'll see that the intake is here. Oh, and by the way, the straps weren't originally on here, but I kept losing pieces, so I strapped every plug down. So here's your intake, and normally I would have a piece of foam, the same foam material as this, that sets in here and curves up and rests right here. You will see it on this one. The other piece is sitting in the garage. I just hadn't put it back in, and I didn't realize I hadn't put it back in. You'll notice that one of the improvements they've made, back in the day, these things were just like this, and a lot of the bees went all the way to the back, whacked on here, and you had dead bees. Now most of the companies are using a slanted floor that goes from here to here. I used a piece of foam so I could do it curved. When they come in, they hit a soft piece of foam and it curves them up. And when I say foam, I don't mean foam rubber. I mean this hard, slick foam, but it's quite flexible. And it curves up. And that's the single most important variation I did on mine. And thankfully, it's on the other one, so I'll show it to you in just a minute. Because I'm just running through this one real quick. Then I'm going to show you the modifications I made on that one. So this one's out of the way. Here's the one I just made this week. I have not decided yet whether I want to put clips on it, because the awkward part of the clips is that when you unclip everything and you lift it off, those clips dangle, and they have to dangle below the level, and it can be somewhat problematical, particularly if you're by yourself, trying to get everything set so that you can put the box down on top of the other box without the straps on those clips getting in your way. So for the moment, I've set this one up with a bungee. Just set to the right size. The bungee on the top piece, even simpler. So as I said, on this one, I did that. It had its drawbacks. So on this one, I'm still using, oh look, the piece of foam. But I went ahead and rabbited out a couple of pieces and slid it in there. On the underside, it's screened in, and as you can see, that extends right to the end of it there. Just as with the other one, the blue lid is the one that I use. The white lid is one that can be used with a larger diameter hose, but so rather than constantly pulling out the wrong one, I just went ahead and painted the cover the right color. And instead of using the soft window stripping material, I used, again, the same rubber that this is and that piece is. I have sheets of it, and I just cut it into strips and put it on here because I know this stuff lasts really well. So first major difference is I did not go with a piece of screen the whole bottom depth of this. I went ahead and just cut a hole through the middle so that I could use the little roller screen, because the big wide pieces, that stuff's expensive. And these rolls that are made to use for repairs on undersides of fascia board here and such is relatively inexpensive and easy to work with. So I insetted, and I also never quite understood. I followed the directions on the other one, and I only inset this on 3 sides and left the 4th side so it could be pulled forward. Never really saw the reason for that. So on this one, I went ahead and inset it all the way around on all 4 sides. And if I find there's a problem with that, well, I'll let you know. This one, of course, hasn't actually been used yet, but I don't see how it could. So there's your first thing. You have 3/4 of an inch of clearance on top of your box. And you have your vacuum here. I think it's going to be beneficial to have done it this way, because this will make for really dead air space in these 2 areas. And while I'm in the act of vacuuming bees, I will probably only put, 2 combs on this side and 2 combs on this side, so the bees have some place to come up and hang out after they get blown in. And with 2 frames in there, I should be able to lift this off, put it onto the body of the box that's going to be their permanent home, and let them get used to it. Now, one thing you do have to be aware of, and do not fail to do this, if you do as I said and you only put a few frames on these 2 sides, you have to have the frames available to put all 8 frames in before you transport. Because if you don't have frames all the way across, then as you're in the act of transport, vibration and such, frames could vibrate sideways and drop down in here, and you don't want that to happen. But now let's get to the most important part. I'm sorry I didn't show it to you on the other one because I failed this. As you can see, this is a foam sheet. Not even too rigidly attached. I could get in there if a bee got underneath it, although I don't really know how they would. But you'll notice my old one, I did not have a curved ramp on the edges. It was just set in there, and it was just the curve. And that curve changed from time to time. This time around, I went ahead and took a piece of fencing material, and I just cut 2 matching pieces with a curve so that I could push this down in here. And it's actually pretty solid. But as you can see, as bees are coming in, boom, boom, boom. This one works beautifully. When we dumped all the bees into the hive back there, and I came out the next morning, there were less than 20 bees on the landing board, dead bees on the landing board. They had removed only about 20 dead bees from that transfer. And 20 bees is nothing. That's a normal daily allowance of dead bees anyway. So the curved rubber piece is my best contribution to this old design of box. It really does very well at keeping the bees safe and sound and uninjured in the process.
And you have 2 holes in the front?
Again, I have 2 holes in the front. Now on that one I only had the one because I have a hose that's one size. But just again, in case I ever need it, I have this other size opening here in case somebody, oh shoot, I forgot my hose, or somebody else is borrowing this and they didn't get the hose from me, or whatever. Just use your imagination and come up with a reason that I might need a second hole of the different size. These are standard sizes. I do have a lot of different size hoses for different vacuums and such, and I use a standard size to make the other hole. So let's put this back together, put the power head on it, the hose on it, and I'll show you how it works. Don't know why. I'm looking at there going, what the heck is going on there? Alrighty. Come on, you. There we go. Alrighty. Oh, let's put that together there. Oh, the handles on the box actually have a little hole underneath. I drilled into it a little way, so there was a good spot for the wire end of these things to catch on. Alrighty. Sweetheart. Oh, never mind, I'll do it. I need a power source for a moment. Of course, your vacuum makes a difference. You're going to use a bucket head vacuum or whatever. You have different powers of vacuum. I went shopping for a vacuum when I started this, and I fell in love with this Rigid Pro because I just like the design of it. I like the way you can just pick it up and move it. It had the necessary power for what I wanted without being overly powerful. The cool part is it's got one of those expanding hoses. So the hose fits inside it. Alrighty. Let's plug this bad boy in. Now, once I turn this thing on, I don't think you'll be able to hear me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this against my cheek, and I'm going to adjust this in and out a little bit to show you. Because, I mean, if you have to yank it off your cheek, you're going to kill bees. You just want it to kind of tug at your cheek a little bit. Here we go. They're closed. There you go. Right about there is you can get a little more powerful, but that works too. So there's a bee vac.
And that's where you want to set it.
That's where you want to set it gently. You just want it nice, gentle. Nice wand on the end of it. I have another 8-foot piece that attaches to this one if I had to go way up a ladder to take care of something. Yes, where we did this removal, there was no power source available. I had to take my little Honda generator. I had to crank it up and use it, which was no problem. It's a quiet generator. We were able to talk to each other and communicate, and had plenty of power for the vacuum. Yeah, some of these bucket designs with that are made from battery operated vacuums are cool, and for removing the small swarms and type spots and things like this, they're great. This was not a swarm. This was a mature colony with about 8 large paddles of comb. that, I would take all the bees off the side of the paddle, slice it across the top, take as many bees as I could off the other side of it, hand it to my wife, same thing, hand it to my wife. And so, it was running for quite a while. I've read a lot of instances where people, if they didn't have extra batteries, found themselves SOL because their battery died in the middle of removal. There are lots of more modern, more convenient designs out there. This is an old design. It's a dependable design. It doesn't kill bees. As set up, I am just always so delighted with this very, very, very small number of bees that are dragged out of the colony the next morning. And there was literally not a dead bee left in here when we dumped it.
And the queen was in there.
Oh, and the queen was in there. We never saw the queen, but she's obviously happily out there. I did an inspection of the hive this afternoon. All those combs are being attached just fine, and there's new brood being laid in there, and they're happy as they can be. They, instead of being out there in all that cold and all that rain and all that wind, they have a nice tight snug box now. And no bees were injured in the making of this particular video. So that's it for today. Y'all have a great evening and a great week, and keep on keeping bees. Bye now.